Welcome to the I Now Pronounce You Divorced podcast, where we have three award-winning family law attorneys dive into intriguing topics like divorce, military divorce, custody and visitation, trust and estate planning, and all things family law. Join us as we provide a comprehensive viewpoint through the eyes of our experts and guests, aiming to educate and soothe our listeners. Get ready to tune in because I Now Pronounce You Divorced starts right now. Hi, I'm Rebecca Melone, and thank you so much for joining us on I Now Pronounce You Divorced. Today, I'm joined by my partner, Charles Hatley, and we have as our guest Mary Fisher from Five Rings Financial. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So today, what we want to talk about is the financial impact of going into a divorce, going through a divorce, coming out of a divorce, kind of all of the good, bad, and ugly, and how you can properly prepare yourself for going through that. So first, Mary, can you just kind of introduce yourself and a little bit about your company and kind of overall what your mission is?
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Charles, for having me. I'm excited to talk to you and your viewers today. Five Rings Financial is a company that's focused on helping people understand how to get the most out of their money. Money can be a really challenging issue. And of course, divorce, right at the crossroads. It seems like the most important thing. So for over 41 years, the CEO of our company, Mike Wilk, has been serving people in this way, first by educating them on how money works. And that's not just like the newbies, that's grown-ups who make a lot of money, but understanding maybe some of the things that they've never been taught about how money works. And so we help people secure their finances. We're in the lane of the financial services industry that helps people reduce risk and helps them have money that they can count on, both in an emergency situation, illness, that sort of a situation, and to make sure that they have income for the rest of their lives. So a little bit of everything, and that's our market, middle and upper middle class America.
Okay, got it. So I was looking before this podcast on some of the statistics around divorce, and they're all over the place, right, in terms of the percentages. But overall, so many people go through a loss of income. They have a reduction in their standard of living. They're at greater risk of going into poverty. What have you seen just on the financial side for people who go through a divorce? What's been your experience?
Well, probably the most disturbing statistic is that for women, about 73% reduction in lifestyle the year after their divorce. So what does that mean? It's like they're just winging it, a hope and a prayer. Now, that's not everyone. You know, sometimes both partners are equally contributing to the financial picture. And oftentimes we have women as the main breadwinner in the household. But for most divorces, we see that impact. And that is massive. I mean, imagine losing out on 73% of what you live off of today. Add inflation to that, and it can be quite devastating for somebody who's successful in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've seen certainly on both sides, but if you have a one partner who's working and saving and doing all the things with the finances and another one who isn't, they can really be at a loss for what's even going on. What do you recommend for someone who might be in that situation and they're like just getting ready to get into a divorce? How do they start to tackle some of these issues or concerns?
It's a great question. And really, I'm going to answer another question and lead to that, which is we should actually be talking about these things before we get married, right? All of the legal matters, but especially money. About 85% of successful people in America really don't understand money. They just get married for love. And that makes sense, right? I'm all for love. I'm married. I love my husband. But understanding how money works and the agreements that we make about who's going to make the money, who's going to save the money, how that's going to go. So I think each partner really understanding money and how it works for them is critical before you get married. But, you know, we're not quite there yet. Most people are still in that situation. But if you know you're headed toward a divorce, or you feel like you might be headed toward a divorce, or you're really wondering, I promise that money is part of that conversation. And so, you know, talking to professionals like you is absolutely huge, and talking to a financial professional is good too, because sometimes you can actually resolve it when you get the money settled. We have so many people who wife, and about half of my clients are single. So I've got the married, some always single, some divorced, and then some married, happily so. And everybody thinks the other guy has it easier, just saying. But when you're thinking about a divorce, it's like, what's going on with the money in our family? And a lot of times there are lack of clarities, right? There's ambiguity, there is confusion. And then on top of the facts about where the money is and what it is or isn't doing, it's the emotional interpretation about how it should go. So I would say sitting down and taking an inventory of your finances, a fair inventory. What are the facts? We oftentimes have blame game that leads to divorce, but sometimes you can unwind that by going, all right, who's making the money? Where's the money going? And who are we following? Whose instructions are we following? So having a strategy at every stage of life for finances and acknowledging, I don't know, I'm not sure how to do this. I'm getting advice off the internet, or I'm getting advice from, somebody at church, and these might be qualified people, but you really want to talk to somebody who understands your situation. But I would say that first step, to answer your question super directly, take an inventory, your debt, your income, your net worth, and get an idea of that. We have so many people in the world that really hide their head in the sand when it comes to finances, and it only comes out when it's divorce time. And maybe we could have done something sooner.
Yeah. You brought up getting advice from friends and family. The other day I read something about how social media is creating a bubble of ignorance on the investing side, on the money side. Everybody's looking at social media to say, look, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, that kind of goes for legal advice, that goes for career advice. Social media is clickbait.
Yes.
So when you have somebody come in and talk to you and they're like, well, I know what's going on. Right? Like I saw this dude on TikTok or Instagram, or my so-and-so told me that I need to be investing in Bitcoin starting in 2025. I'm going to invest in all Bitcoin. How do you handle nicely taking down those preconceptions they have and building up actual knowledge with them?
I love your question. I love your question. This is a massive challenge. And what's great about social media is what you said, that you get exposed to things that maybe you never were exposed to before. So that's good. But it really is the education process. So for us, focusing on education first, that breaks down the barriers of like, I got to pay some money to be there. Similar to like when you do a consult, the first consult, it's like, come and breathe and tell us your story. And normally what happens is when someone comes in, they'll say, I saw this on TikTok, or I learned a little bit about this tax-free business owner strategy, or I heard about this thing called living benefits, or I heard some way that you can double your money in 20 seconds, And so I think it's all about relationship and understanding where somebody is and where they want to go. And so we never charge for an appointment, and we never have any pressure that people do business with us. What we want to help them do is get organized and evaluate where they are and where they want to go. And, money is math and science, but humans are emotional. So we got to kind of take that into account. And sometimes in a divorce situation, you might have one partner who's super analytical, and follows a certain philosophy and is unmovable. And then we have another one who feels like an idiot because this person's so certain of where they are. And I promise you, neither one of them is right. So, we look at money really in 10-year periods of time because, for example, one of the things that we do for people is we help them protect their IRAs and roll it into a safe place that's growing. Well, 10 years ago, those interest rates that we were able to give them were really low. It was safe, which is what people were looking for, but the interest rates were really low. Well, the bad news about interest rates rising on mortgages and things like that is interest rates are rising in these fixed and guaranteed accounts. So now we're able to offer those to people. So if I have a client, a friend, and someone I'm introduced to, I like to find out where they are and then educate them on what's available. We are really in that safe growth area. So I never belittle anybody for taking risks. I never belittle anybody for being super safe. What I say is, there's generally a place for all of these, but let's find out how you feel about money. And what's interesting, I'm a Gen Xer. I know you can't tell I'm in my 50s, but I'm a Gen Xer, and we were taught you got to put it all at risk. But that's actually not accurate. You can become wealthy and stable doing that. So how do we do that? We really just listen. And again, social media is great, but are they going to sit down with you? Are they going to be in your life and ask you about your circumstance and what's going on? I will tell you, I've had more people, really successful, in some cases, many degrees, sit across the table from me and say things like, no one ever asked me that before, you know? So genuine care and concern for the other human being is where this begins. And if they can win financially, then we win secondarily. And it should always be in that order. I know that's how you guys serve people. But yeah, I started to try to keep up with all the things they were watching, and I just can't. But it's kind of the same thing over and over again. So I'm pretty teed up, ready for that when it comes in, you know. A lot of unrealistic expectations too. So one of the things we teach people is how money actually works and what's at stake. So when you mention Bitcoin, you know, there's a lot of electronic currencies, virtual currencies, et cetera, and that's just not my area. So you want to play with that? That's entirely up to you. But that's also really important because there's very few people who can be all things to all people. We understand our market, are licensed and regulated to do that. So that's where we go. But in the beginning, I tried to answer every question. Now it's like, it's great that you know about that, but let's take it back to what do you really want to accomplish?
Right. I think, and that's so true with legal advice too. They have the friend who went through it, and this is what happened for their case. And it's really difficult as, you know, third or fourth string information to sort of piece together, well, I think this may have been going on or that may have been going on, but no two cases are going to be identical. No two, you know, even the same judge with two really similar cases might do different things. And so you're exactly on point that just getting to the bottom of, okay, but what's important to you and what can we do for your situation is the most important thing. And I don't care what happened to your friend or your neighbor or whoever 10 years ago, because that's not what it is right now.
Yes, that's great.
So one thing that I think is also interesting when folks are going through divorce is like we have to split the professionals. What do we do? What do you do as a professional if you have a couple that you've been helping and they're going to go through a separation? Can you stay with one? What do you do? How do you deal with that interaction?
That's such an excellent question. I actually don't think we've had that.
Okay.
Which is bizarre, right? Maybe if you do get the money straight, you're going to stay married forever. I'm just saying, but we have actually had a few couples where one of the partners died, where they passed away prematurely. And so the planning that we did was huge. But let's just say divorce is, you know, statistically inevitable when we have such a large community. What we would do is let them decide. You know, it really has a lot to do with ownership and beneficiary designation. So who owns what plan? You know, we just have a few simple plans that people can purchase. So at the time of purchase, there's an owner, an insured, or an annuitant. Those are our three terms. So it's like, who's in control of the money already? And sometimes that might be neat and clean when they come and talk to you and they make their plan. It's like, this is in my bucket already, so we'll leave it there. This is in my bucket already, so we'll leave it there. But generally it's owned by the individual. So we would, it hasn't come up yet, but we'll always do what's right. We want whatever you would advise probably as the attorney is where we would go. And that's a great question. Hopefully I won't have to do that very much, but happy to.
Right. It's difficult when you have, and I feel like I see this, you know, just from the other side, you have people who've been married for 20 years and they've gone to the same tax person, the same financial person, the same whoever. And then, you know, one of the spouses is like starting from scratch. Where do I go? What do I do? Who do I talk to? I think I understand what we have, but I'm not totally sure. And that has to be such a difficult conversation when you're representing or trying to help two people. And now you can only deal with one.
Yeah. If I can add to that for a second, I was thinking about the products, right? So when we have had, I know in my team, we've had some divorces and there's like, where is the money going to go? So when the attorney actually pulls us into the conversation and says, you know, we have this lack of equity or lack of balance, you know, because we're going for this person and we're actually getting them the proper settlement, but we don't want the other person to drown, you know. I think it's really a matter of looking at it, especially if they have children, what's that situation with children. So for example, one of the things that I highly, highly recommend every single person getting a divorce who has children does is get themselves what we have. And lots of financial people have this available. We just are the leader in our area, but it's life insurance with living benefits, because if there's some sort of payout, like, you know, I almost was, well, I'm going to tell you, I thought the word ransom, but that's not the word. What's it called? When someone's divorced and they get a payout?
I
So,
definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah, settlement.
so, yeah.
Very good. So, alimony or paternity,
Yeah.
when you have a
Spousal support.
regular payment,
Okay.
if the person who's the source of the payment should have some sort of chronic, critical, or catastrophic illness, their ability to fulfill on that commitment, that legal document, falls away. So getting life insurance, for sure, if they pass away, we want to make sure that that's available to fund the commitment that their divorce settlement put together, but that you guys put together. But also, if they're unable to work, if work has something to do with providing cash flow for the family, we want to make sure that they actually know this is available. So one of our most important targets right now is making sure that the people who are influencing those decisions know it's available. And then there's also the annuity product, which is, it can secure the money, and it can actually pay it out, not just in a lump sum, because I bet you guys have the experience that sometimes people feel like they won the lottery when they get a divorce. Like, oh, I got this chunk of money. Like, oh, I've got my settlement. It's, $500,000, $800,000. Unless they have a plan to manage their life with that money, like many lottery winners, that money's going to be gone in 2 to 7 years. Even the great American 401k, most people, unless they put it into some management tool where it allocates them an income, it's gone within 7 years. So that's also something we can help them strategize with. And so thinking about those things when people don't even know they exist, that's tricky. So just getting in their head about that.
Yeah.
I had a client that she got a $900,000 settlement and then another like $1.5 million in spousal support payments over 10 years. And so that was before I joined the case. And then she blew it all. Everything gone. She was homeless. And I was coming back and asking the court for the husband had fair or spousal support. And the court wasn't going to do it. I mean, when it came time, because they were just trying to say, like, oh, we don't know where the money went. But she showed up. She had a nice Louis Vuitton purse. She had, expensive shoes on. She drove up in a very nice, expensive car. And she had literally just spent it all and had taken no account to the fact that some of the money was coming from tax abated accounts. So she took that. She got hit with the taxes on that. And there's no planning whatsoever. And the court was not very sympathetic to her when she came back asking for more. In reality, she had to pay my client's attorney's fees.
Wow. That's exactly it. Every day I hear people who say, well, I have this and I invested it here, but they were not the kind of person that could afford to take that kind of risk. And they had the money. Oh, if I think I could get it all back. So it's really that discipline of understanding how money works. And even like for your client, good job defending your client. But for your clients, like, listen, we don't really want that person to fail. We're generally ticked off when we're getting a divorce, very rare. Very rare is it amicable, even if it starts that way. There's like, that I'm sure shows up, but you don't want them to fail. So being able to say, hey, I know your history with money and you spend everything that's in your allowance. We're going to put you on an allowance. And so you guys, it's embarrassing to admit, but fully grown human beings do that. And it's not magic, it's money.
Right. So another thing that you brought up was those beneficiary designations. And this can be, it's the last thing that you're thinking about, right? When you're going through a divorce, the very last thing on your to-do list is update beneficiary designations. But how can that play in if we're not keeping things up to date?
So huge. So early in my career, I had a terrible story of a Virginia state trooper who died in an accidental death situation with a backhoe. Off-duty, young man, not even 25 years old, but very ambitious man, was already on his second marriage, right? So you got to give him something for going for that. But he did not change, and he had a very small life insurance policy with the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and it was the beneficiary was his ex-wife. Well, his new wife had a new baby, and so the ex-wife got the life insurance. End of story. So that's a very, very clear example of how you really do need to plan these things. And in your case, beneficiary designations, what the average person should know is that they go tax-free to the beneficiary. Now, sometimes if it's an employer paid situation, that might differ. So you always have to double check with your tax people. But it goes tax-free, and I call it hassle-free. In all my years, I've only had to pay one death claim. I've had one client pass away. She was young. She was 38 years old, the policy that I had written. And she ended up with colon cancer, went to the ER, and 17 days later, she perished. Well, she only had a little job. She didn't make very much money, but her husband and she had great respect for each other. So they called me in to make sure she had some life insurance too. So if she had lived, we would have been able to take a lot of money out of that to help her with treatment, but she died so quickly. Once they passed away, he was the sole beneficiary, the husband, and he said, I never in a million years thought I would die first. So what you think is going to happen may not be what happens. And that's kind of having those big girl, big boy conversation is let's do that so other people don't have to worry about that. They requested death certificates. And once they had that in hand, I went to the home. He signed 2 signatures. And within 5 days, $250,000 of tax-free money was in his bank account.
Wow.
Now, this is a super successful guy. He didn't need that money. And he decided later to invest it in honoring of her. It was a cool thing that he did. But that beneficiary designation uncomplicates things. So it's tax-free and nobody else has to get involved. Sometimes, though, a beneficiary might be your trust. And that's really important to talk to your attorney about, is how that trust should be set up, right? That's what kind of a trust and who does that go to? Because sometimes there's life insurance is used as a wealth tool, like a wealth transition tool from generation to generation. And that's a little bit more complicated than my degree is, but you guys have that. So together we make great partners. But the beneficiary designation can go wrong, and you can have multiple beneficiaries. And you can have contingent beneficiaries. So for example, my own life, it's my husband, myself, and my son. So, they're all involved in line 1 of my beneficiary designations. But if we should perish together, I also have contingency beneficiary designations. I mean, the likelihood of that happening, 0. Okay. If that happens, you're going to have to play this podcast again and say goodbye for me. But the likelihood of that happening is low, but let's just be responsible. So now I have that second line in place if that should happen. And that lets me sleep better at night. And I think that's important for people because people are stressed out about those things. Anyway, that's probably more than you wanted, but
No,
what
that's
else about
great.
beneficiaries? Yeah.
That's great. Beneficiary designations are one of the biggest missteps that I've seen. So couples that they've just started to separate, they've maybe just started a divorce. If someone passes away, during the process, whoever is named on that policy is the person that gets the funds. Usually that's not what you want to have happen, right? So that's
Yes.
where we see it go wrong all too frequently. Another mistake we see a lot is folks will name their child as the number one beneficiary. And that gets really convoluted because you have to, like you said, involve other people. You have to go to court. You have to pay attorneys. It's more of a to-do than you necessarily want for that situation.
Absolutely.
So how would our listeners learn more about Five Rings Financial, about Mary Fisher, about what to do if they're facing a divorce? Where can they go to get some more information?
Great. So my website is Solve for Life. That's what my business is built on, is helping people solve their questions and problems for life.com. And all my contact information is there. If you're an Instagram person, you can follow me at Middle Class Millionaires. And I don't say that to be cocky, but I say that like you kind of have to be a millionaire if you want to survive the middle class these days. So we'd invite you to come. We have free classes all across the country in many, many, many cities, but also online. So if you're interested in coming to a free class and just listening, we'd love to give you that free education. And of course, if you're in Virginia Beach or many of the surrounding areas, we do something called Wine, Women, and Wealth, which is a whole different podcast, but an opportunity to network and connect with other fantastic women and get some of those fundamentals.
Okay.
So thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, this has been I Now Pronounce You Divorced. If you liked this content, if you're interested, if you want to learn more, please like, subscribe, let us know what we can bring to you next week, and we look forward to talking with you again.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Charles.
Hey.
Thank you for tuning in to our podcast. If you found this episode helpful and you want more informational content, please be sure to subscribe and join us on all major social media platforms, including YouTube. Stay connected for more exciting updates and tips.